Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Our Home Ground, where the women's game feels personal and powerful. I'm so excited to be here this week because I think what we're going to talk about is kind of a hot topic, or at least it has been in the past. So I haven't talked about it that often, but I think this weekend, really, really made my arguments much, much more relevant. And so this week we're going to be talking about VAR, which is a video assistant referee. If you are unaware of that, it's like a review process for soccer games, but not every league in the world uses it, especially in the women's game, because they require higher technology in the stadiums. Oftentimes, those are only in the bigger stadiums, those kinds of things. The WSL in England does not use VAR. The NWSL in the United States does use VAR. And then for any like major tournament, talking World Cup, Olympics, Euros, those kinds of things, we're using VAR. I think we're just going to get into it because I am fully decked out in Arsenal merch today because it was a big weekend. Arsenal played Chelsea at the Emirates, so at Arsenal's home ground, and it ended up in a 1-1 draw, and it needed VAR. That's just the bottom line, in my opinion. It needed VAR. Both coaches were asked after the game in their post-match press conferences if VAR should come to the WSL, and they both were essentially like, yeah, probably. So I want to get into it a little bit and talk about it, but we can get into sort of what happened if you didn't watch the game. It was a really good game, I think. As a neutral, it was probably very fun to watch. I'm certainly not neutral when it comes to Arsenal and Chelsea. So there's that. I still enjoyed the watch. I just didn't love the result. So Arsenal had two goals that were disallowed. They scored technically three goals, hit the back of the net, two of which were disallowed. And it's interesting because the one that was allowed is actually the one that probably shouldn't have been. So we'll get into it a little bit. So the first goal that was disallowed was a goal by Stina Blackstenius. It was from, I think, like a corner kick. And now I'm not remembering exactly right, but I think it was from a free kick. I don't know if it was a corner or a different free kick. And the ball just sort of like landed at her feet and she blasted it into the top of the goal, the net. It was stunning. It came to her and she like put both of her arms out and like got it in like her like stomach kind of region, I think. And then the ball fell to her feet and she finished, and it was gorgeous. It's important to note that not a single Chelsea player reacted in a way that they were expecting any sort of call. They all reacted as though they had just gotten scored upon. Were running back to the center of the pitch. Arsenal was celebrating. Turns out, and this was very confusing for those of us who were viewing at home because the WSL broadcast itself didn't even know this for 4 minutes. The goal was disallowed because it was called a handball on Stina Blackstenius. You can go back and watch it from every angle that is possible, which the Emirates Stadium would have VAR because they can use it for the men's games. So you can watch every angle possible, and in none of the angles does it get anywhere near Stina's hand, arm, any part of it. She firmly gets it with her body, but the referee from behind her called it a handball. Again, not a single Chelsea player like raised their arm asking for a handball call. They all accepted that they had been scored upon. Nobody was pushing back against it. It was confusing because they kept like showing the replay, and then when they went back to the game, I noticed that Hannah Hampton was like kicking the ball from inside the box. And I was like, that's weird. We must have like missed something that happened, like an offside or something that happened like right after like the game restarted. But I didn't think anything of it because it still said like the score said 1-1 as Chelsea had already scored. Alyssa Thompson's goal was beautiful. That finish was 10 out of 10 from her. And I hate that. She did that for Chelsea, but I do. She's unreal. Anyways, that's beside the point. So we're talking about Stina here. So I was like so confused. It said 1-1 and I was like, that's weird. And then like 4 minutes later, it was the commentators finally realized that the goal had been called back. So this happened in like the 53rd minute, the goal, but it didn't get like changed to the people at home until the 57th. So then everybody was up in arms because they thought that it got like called back later. And I was like, there's no VAR. They can't do that. Like I was very heated. Turns out, then I was thinking about it and I was like, wait, they restarted from inside the box. They didn't start from the halfway line. Like it was never a goal. The WSL commentators just like didn't know that. So frustrating because Chelsea knew it was a goal. Arsenal knew it was a goal. Ridiculous. Then the next thing that happened, I think I'm getting this in order, was I watched this game, but it started at like 7 a.m. US time. So it was early in the morning and I was stressed. But the next goal that happened was Alessia Russo off of a Freedom Monum, I think, ball in, finished great. Beautiful goal. Turns out Les was offsides. It was not called offside. That was called a goal. All is well. 1-1 Chelsea Arsenal. And the second half really was like all Arsenal in my memory. And so it like made, I think even Chelsea fans might admit like they should be really, really happy with the draw. Like Arsenal deserved to win the game for many reasons outside of the sort of like refereeing of the game. Um, but that goal would not have stood if there was VAR because Alessia Russo was offside. So in a theoretical world in which we have VAR, Stina's goal is a goal, so then it's 1-1. Alessia's goal is called offside and it gets taken, the goal is not standing, and so then it's still 1-1. Then Frida Monum herself has this beautiful finish. It was like a transition play. They pass the ball to Frida, and Frida goes kind of like one-on-one with Hannah Hampton because she beat the defender and finishes. But they called it offside, and Frida was not offside because it like the people in the booths can like review these things. It can't change the what happens on the field, but she was not offside. There's so many pictures of it. Like girl was clearly onside. It was relatively close, but she was onside. And so it if we had VAR, theoretically it should have ended 2-1 to Arsenal. What's what also I think needs to be talked about is there's at least one foul that's in mind, but that's not the one that I'm seeing people talk about online. At least one foul committed by Arsenal player that should have been a red card. And to me, that is the Victoria Pelova foul on Kira Walsh that happened right in the middle of the pitch. It was bad, studs up. Pelova got a yellow for it. In my opinion, it was a red card. And with VAR, that would be reviewed and she would get a red card and then Arsenal would go down to 10 players. Two of the goals happened after that, I think. Two of these potential goals, I think Alessia Russo's and Frida's both happened after that challenge. So I it's hard to say that like Arsenal should have won 2-1 because I really think Arsenal should have been down to 10 players. And so then it's like, do they score that goal? Do they score the second goal? Like, does any of this happen? It would have been 1-1. So theoretically, it might have ended the same if they went down to 10 players. But like, all of these things are so frustrating as somebody who watches another league that does use VAR, though imperfectly. I just think if we're going to raise the level of the game and the playing and the tactics and everything, then we have to raise the level of the officiating as well. And the game just moves so fast. There are so many things going on that you need VAR as this sort of like backup. The refs still have to be on it and really like calling the game well because VAR can only change a call if it is a clear and obvious error. So it's not that no calls are going to be made and then we'll just go to VAR every time. That's not it. VAR can change the call if there's a clear and obvious error. So like offside has become like automated. And so if it is called offside and it's not, then it will fix that because it's clear and obvious. And if it's not called offside, but it is, it will also fix that. The way that that usually turns out is they might think that the player is offside, but they wait and they let the game continue. And then either when the ball is cleared by the defensive team or if the goal is scored, then they can raise the flag saying like, hey, I thought it was offside. Then VAR will review it and see if it's offside or not. And if they don't call it offside, VAR still reviews it. There's like always a review, and is my understanding when there's VAR with a goal. So again, like it's a backup. It like assists the ref, right? It's an assistant referee, and it just offers another like look at these things. I will say the NWSL has had it for a couple of seasons now. I want to say three. This is the third year. And there were growing pains with it for sure. I don't think that they necessarily, I don't know, relied on or emphasized the like clear and obvious enough in the first two seasons. So we'd see like these referees at the VAR screen for like 5+ minutes reviewing something. Okay, if it takes that long to review it, then it's probably not a clear and obvious error, and then we need not change the call because that is the whole thing about the VAR. But the more we're using it, the better it's getting. And so there were a lot of concerns about having like 10 minutes plus added to each half of NWSL games because of VAR situations. That is drastically improving, in my opinion. I haven't noticed those kinds of things that are happening. I haven't noticed those kinds of things continue to happen this season. I think it is much, much improved. The referees are getting used to it. Even the VAR, because there's somebody who's like the VAR official, they're better at like reviewing it and knowing which ones to send down to the ref on the field for review, all of those kinds of things. So certainly there are growing pains. But again, like I guess my sort of question is, and I certainly have what I think the answer is can the WSL be the best league in the world if they don't have VAR? And I think the answer is no, because everybody knows that the game with people have strong opinions that the refereeing was not good in the Arsenal versus Chelsea game. Ended up each team took 1 point away. But in a league where the top of the table can be so tight and that matters, I don't think it matters for Arsenal's like title race. Although I do think if they got all 3 points, arguably they could be back in a title race. I still think it's Chelsea's to lose, although they are second in the table right now to City. But I think it's Chelsea's title to lose, but this will matter for like Champions League qualification. Like I think between Man United, Man City, and Arsenal, it's going to be super tight to see who gets a Champions League qualification spots. Like whoever finishes second and third in the league get Champions League qualification, and who finishes fourth doesn't. Arsenal currently sits fourth as they've had a bit of a rough start, but like getting all 3 points here would have put them tied for third instead of in fourth. It would have put City clear top of the table by 3 point. Like it matters in a lot of different ways for a lot of different things. And this is just one game. If we look at things accumulating over the whole season, like it could drastically change. I know there's no like official relegation. It's like a relegation playoff for the 12th place team, but like it matters there too at the bottom of the table. Like a league this strong requires the best officiating in the game. And that at this point includes VAR. And I think people are really resistant to it because there will be growing pains. And like the first season that we have VAR, it will be painful. But I do think in the long run, it is better. And I think it protects players because I think Palova makes a different tackle knowing that it could be reviewed. Not to say that she like intentionally went insteads up, but like, or it gets a red card and then she's out for the next game, which is the North London Derby, which again is a big game, right? Like these things have like ripple effect consequences. Like it carries on for bigger than just like one game. And so I don't know. I really, really think that the WSL needs VAR. I think one of the major issues is some of these like lower table teams, their stadiums might not be equipped for VAR, but I think that's too bad. If you're going to be investing in playing in this league and investing in women's sports in this way, you have to have the right things. And so you have to equip your stadiums with VAR. Like that's my opinion on it, and I feel really strongly about it. And I think there was the NWSL playoffs were this weekend as well. Obviously, VAR is present in that, and I think we saw a really good example of good VAR usage in the Portland Thorns versus San Diego Wave game because there were two calls that could have been penalties. One was a handball in the box, theoretically a handball in the box by a Portland Thorns player who was defending, and it was ultimately not even sent down to the ref on the field for review. The ref did not call a handball, and the official in the box said, I don't think that this rises. Essentially, what we're understanding is that the VAR official said, I don't think this is a clear and obvious error, so I'm not sending it down to the on-field ref for review. And so there was no call on the field, and it just play continued on. I think if I'm a San Diego Wave fan, I'm annoyed about that. Even with VAR, calls are going to be imperfect. There is still a level of subjectivity because like what does clear and obvious error mean? All of that kind of stuff. So again, it's not perfect, But at the end of the day, I do think it's much more fair to the players for them to be putting in all of this work and all of this effort to be training at the top to be the best players in the world, but not have the officiating match that, I think is completely unfair to them. And so I'm a big advocate for VAR with the acknowledgement that the first season or two are going to be painful, and that's okay. I think in the end it's worth it. The other call that happened in the or no call that happened in the Portland Thorns game, Sam Coffey thought that she was fouled in the box. No foul was called. And then I think it was kind of like a 50-50. Like if both of these calls, I think were actually 50-50, which is why I said earlier, the officials, the refs who are on the field still have to be like on it and making the best calls that they can. And then it can be reviewed if the call's an error. But I think both of these calls, if they would have been called penalties on the field, they wouldn't have been overturned because I think they were kind of like could be, could not be for both. The second one, Sam Coffey thought that she was fouled in the box. And there was contact, but it wasn't clear like who initiated the contact, if Sam Coffey initiated the contact or if the San Diego Wave player did. So again, I think it's a 50-50. Like I think if it's called a penalty in real time, it's not going to get overturned, but it wasn't called a penalty. And I don't think it was a clear and obvious error to not call it a penalty. And so it's like this backup support that exists, and it I think allows the officials, the referees on the field to make better calls knowing that they have backup, and just I think it makes a really big difference. And like I said, both Sonia Bonpastor, the Chelsea coach, and Renee Slegers, the Arsenal coach, both were like, yeah, like we probably need VAR like at this point. And as I've been saying, for me, it's just about the level of the game is high enough that we need the officiating to match, and nobody real time can make all of the right calls. They need this extra level of assistance. That's why we have it at all the major tournaments. That's why leagues like the NWSL are starting to utilize it. And so I just think it's very, very, very important. I'm looking through my notes to see if I missed anything, but I don't think that I did. I think I hit most of the major points that I wanted to hit. So I don't know. I feel like this might be a controversial take. And of course, I do think that like my team got slighted, but this happened last year in the Chelsea game. I felt like my team got slighted, but it happens all the time. And so I really do think that it's best for everyone. And if anything, it makes it more fair, makes sure the calls are better. And I am arguing that one of my team's players should have gotten a red card. I think people are trying to say that Katie McCabe's challenge on Lucy Bronze also deserved a red card. I don't think that that's true. I think Palova's on Kira Walsh was way worse than Katie's on Lucy. But I also think there's a whole rhetoric around Katie McCabe online that I'm not going to get into right now, but might in a future episode if it continues to be a thing. And I think just like within the refereeing, yeah, I don't know. That's my thoughts on VAR with the London derby of Chelsea and Arsenal. Ended in a draw, which I don't think is the worst thing. It's not like it ended in a loss, but for Arsenal, but like, I don't know. It's annoying. And because we have the tools, like, and that stadium has the tools, but because the whole league isn't using it, you can't use it for just like one game. And so, um, yeah, I don't know. I think we've got to raise the level of all of the teams, of all of the stadiums, implement VAR. The girls deserve it. They're working so hard. The WSL does have so many of the best players in the world, and so they deserve to have the best officiating in the world as well. And I argue that you can't have the best officiating in the world if you don't have VAR. So, anyways, that's what I have to say about all of that. Please let me know what you guys think. Am I totally wrong or not? I don't know. Anyways, I almost forgot. I do have one other thing to say, and I was gonna record the pod yesterday on Sunday after the NWSL playoffs, but then I decided I want to do a whole VAR episode, so I didn't even really get into the NWSL playoffs. I'll probably do that next week, as they continue to progress. But the Athletic I wrote an article that Atlanta has been confirmed to be the next NWSL expansion city, and that is where I live. And nothing has meant more to me in my life than this. That's probably not true. That's dramatic. But I am so, 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 so excited. I have never lived in a city where I have a professional, like a fully professional hometown team that I can support. I am so excited. I hope that it has a really cool name and that we get really cool players. And I'm just so excited about it. There's a lot of really good talent that is from the Atlanta area. So I think we should bring them all home. I was talking to some of my friends about who I think should be like the first signee and who we should build our franchise around. And I offered Croy Bethune. Don't know if she'll want to leave the Spirit. She is a big Atlanta girl. She like always posts whenever she's back. Although she's really from Alpharetta, which is like a pretty far out suburb, but we'll take it. It's Atlanta enough to build a team around her. I think it would be lovely if we got her. Emily Sonnet is from here. That's like my dream. I just don't know when this team's gonna like actually be in the league. I'm betting on 2028 because we have two new teams coming in next year, and then they usually like to like not do expansion teams 2 years in a row. Although they have in the past, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. I would love for Emily Sonnet to be here because I think that would be so fun. She's also an Atlanta girl. There's a lot of Atlanta players. Jane Campbell, the goalie for the Houston Dash right now, is from the Atlanta area. So would be so fun. It's gonna be so fun no matter what. I'm going to be their biggest fan. I am so excited. This is like actually like a game changer for me. And I don't know, I'm just so excited. So if you guys have thoughts about that, let me know. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're on Instagram and TikTok, our home ground on both. I think Instagram is like at our home ground P, and on TikTok we're at our.home.ground dot pod maybe. Ooh, I'll have it at the end of the show. It'll show in the screen. And then if you're watching on YouTube, hey, and if you're not watching on YouTube, we are on YouTube. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, hey, if you're there, we are also on YouTube. So I don't know, subscribe, share, comment, roast me for having a dumb opinion about VAR. I don't know. Just let me know what you guys think. I love making this podcast and I would love for it to be more of like a deliberative process. Wait, that's not. I don't think that's what I wanted to say. I would like this to be more of like a discussion. Hopefully, I'm going to be getting some guests back on the pod. My life is finally like calming down just a little bit. That's kind of a lie. I'm traveling for American Thanksgiving and like all the things. But my friend of the pod, my best friend in the whole world, Laura, is coming to Chicago to do Thanksgiving with me. So I am so excited about that. And then also friend of the pod, Allison lives up that way too. So we're hopefully going to get to see her. And maybe if I say it on here, they'll actually do it. Maybe I can like convince them to do like a 3-person all together in real life podcast because I think that would be so fun. Anyways, I hope everybody has a great rest of their week and I'll see you guys next time.